Elara and the River Prince. Once upon a time, in a small village near a quiet river, there lived a girl named Elara. Elara was kind and beautiful, but her life was very hard. Her family was very poor, and they couldn't afford to take care of her. One cold night, they decided to leave her on the street because they had no money for food or clothes. Elara sat on the street, crying all alone. It was 2 a.m., and the stars were shining in the dark sky. Just then, a woman named Mara passed by with a carriage. She saw Elara crying and decided to take her home. But Mara was not a kind woman. She was mean and selfish. She made Elara clean the house, cook the meals, and do all the hard work. Elara was treated like a servant. She worked from morning until night while Mara and her 3 daughters rested and laughed. Years passed, and Elara grew up into a beautiful young woman. She was now 18 years old. Even though her life was hard, she always dreamed of a better future. She often dreamed of meeting a kind prince who would take her away from her sad life.
A chance meeting by the river. One day, Mara sent Elara to the market to buy food. On her way back, Elara stopped by the river. She loved to watch the water flow and listen to the birds sing. It made her feel calm and happy. As she sat by the river, she noticed a young man riding a horse. He was handsome with a friendly smile. His name was Carlos, and he was the prince of the nearby kingdom. Carlos saw Elara sitting by the river and felt his heart skip a beat. He had never seen anyone so beautiful. He rode closer and said, "Hello, what is your name?" Elara blushed and looked down shyly. "My name is Elara," she replied. They talked for a while, and both of them felt happy. They laughed and shared stories. Elara felt like she was in a dream, talking to the kind and handsome prince. But soon, it was time for her to go home. She waved goodbye to Carlos and ran back to Mara's house. The evil stepmother's plan. When Elara got home, Mara noticed that she was smiling. "Why are you so happy?" Mara asked in a harsh voice. Elara didn't want to tell Mara about the prince. She knew that Mara was mean and would not like it. But Mara was very clever. She guessed that Elara had met someone special, and she became angry. "You are not allowed to go outside anymore," Mara shouted. "I don't want you meeting anyone. You will stay inside and work." Mara's 3 daughters laughed. They were jealous of Elara's beauty and kindness. They wanted to marry a rich man like the prince, but they knew they were not as beautiful as Elara. Carlos searches for Elara. The next day, Carlos went back to the river to look for Elara. He waited there for hours, but she never came. He came back every day for a week, hoping to see her again. He missed her smile and the way she talked so kindly. Carlos decided he had to find her. He asked his guards to help him search the village. They knocked on every door, asking about a girl named Elara, but no one knew where she was. Finally, they reached Mara's house. Mara opened the door and smiled sweetly. "Oh, you must be looking for a beautiful girl," she said. "That's one of my daughters. Please come inside and meet them." Mara's daughters dressed up in fancy clothes, trying to impress the prince. But Carlos knew they were not the girl he was looking for. He felt sad and was about to leave when he saw something on the ground. It was a red scarf. The same red scarf Elara wore the day they met by the river. Finding Elara. Carlos turned to Mara and said, "Where's Elara? I know she is here." Mara's smile disappeared. She tried to lie, saying she didn't know anyone named Elara. But Carlos was not fooled. He ordered his guards to search the house. The guards looked everywhere but couldn't find Elara. Mara had hidden her under the house. Elara was tied up, with her hands and feet bound. She couldn't call for help because her mouth was covered. Carlos was about to leave when he remembered the red scarf again. He felt that something was wrong and decided to search the house one more time. He asked the guards to check every corner carefully. Finally, after 2 long days of searching, they heard a soft noise coming from under the floor. The guards pulled up the floorboards and found Elara, tied up and scared. Carlos ran to her and untied her ropes. "Elara, I found you," Carlos said, holding her hand. "I'm so sorry it took so long." Elara looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "I knew you would come," she whispered. A happy ending. Carlos took Elara back to the palace. He was very angry at Mara and her daughters for what they had done. They were arrested and sent away from the village. Elara was free at last. Carlos and Elara decided to get married. Their wedding was the biggest and most beautiful the village had ever seen. Everyone was invited, except for Mara and her daughters. The villagers cheered for Elara, happy that the kind girl had finally found her happiness. After the wedding, Elara became a princess. But she never forgot where she came from. She knew what it was like to be poor and hungry, so she used her new wealth to help others. She opened a small business and hired women from the village to work there. She made sure they had enough food and a safe place to stay. Elara and Carlos had 2 children, a little girl named Eli and a boy named Eddie. They lived happily in the palace, but they often visited the village to help those in need. Elara became known as the kindest princess in the land. She never let power change her gentle heart. Every time she went to the river, she remembered the day she met Carlos and how her life changed forever. And so, Elara's story became a legend in the village. People told their children about the kind girl who never gave up hope and found happiness because of her gentle heart and bravery. The end.